Hashem Naaseh v'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Baruch Hashem. We are going to start a new series today, Be'ezrat Hashem. My intention is Be'ezrat Hashem to have a shorter series than the last one. We had the Mussar Pirkei Avot series, which is one of the foundations of all Mussar, was Baruch Hashem a 2.5 year series. So we figured we'd try to do something a little shorter. But from just even learning for the first shiur, the way of holiness, it's I don't know how short it's actually going to end up being. I mean, yes, technically we can cover it in one shiur, but you're not really going to, change much if you do that. We're going to try to do obviously a series. My estimation, I would say, is maybe this is going to be about 6 months. Probably about 6 months worth of shiurim, depending on how many shiurim we have per week on this series. But either way, the series is going to be about one of the most important letters that has ever been written. This letter is a letter that has been printed probably more times than any other letter in history. The letter has been written in your sidurim in many cases, especially Achinu Ashkenazim. In many cases have this letter in their sidurim. Many people have included this letter in their Birkat Hamazon. And for the last 800 or so years, this letter has been distributed in countless languages, places, and there's a lot of different commentaries on the letter. In reality, you can study this letter from now until the end of the world, and you'll probably still find new things from it. And the letter is called Iggeret HaRamban. The letter that the Ramban, Rabbi Moshe Nachman Girondi, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman Girondi, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman was lived in Girondi in Spain, and but he's more well known as the Ramban with an N at the end. There's the Rambam, which we've spoken about many times, Maimonides, and then there's the Ramban, which is no less known, maybe not as popular as the Rambam in certain aspects, but in the world of Torah, the enormous amount of Torah that he wrote, when you start delving into it a little bit, you see quickly that anyone that studied the Rambam immediately continued and started learning the Ramban, which was the very next generation. And the amount of Torah that he wrote, whether it was his world-encompassing commentary on the entire Talmud, or the entire Torah, or the different Mussar books that he put together, and letters and discourses, or the very famous debate that he had in Barcelona against the Jew that went astray and became a Christian and tried to debate Am Yisrael by saying that the Mashiach already came, and his name was Yeshu, Yimach Shemo V'Zichro, and they forced the Gdol Hador, the Ramban, to debate him. They forced one Jew that's a heretic to debate a Jew that's a tzaddik, because they wanted to show to the Christian world and the Jewish world that, hey, Christianity is the way to go. Now, the Ramban did not want to do this debate because he knew that the way that the Christians play is not exactly very fair. If you lose, then they're very happy. But if you win, they kill you, and your family, and your friends, and most likely everybody that you know and you don't know. So the Ramban knew this about the Christians. Nothing has changed, by the way. In 800 years, they still play unfair. Typically, if you watch any debates, typically the expert debaters in the Christian world look for rabbis that, at least when it comes to knowledge about debating and knowledge about Christianity. They're the underdog, to say the least. Some of them are halfway retarded when it comes to the issue. And I call them that simply because they should have never allowed themselves on the stage. If you don't know their world better than them, you're not allowed to go on stage. Why? Because then you cause a chilul Hashem. But unfortunately, many people like the stage. And they go and debate these Christians and cause a big chilul Hashem. Or sometimes people call themselves rabbis, but they're really not even Jewish b'chlal. So it's very confusing. It's very confusing. But the point is that when is a real rabbi that's knowledgeable, that knows who, what, when, and how in Judaism, as well as how to debate it, how to defend it, when he wins, if the Christians can take advantage and manipulate it, they will. For example, a lot of people for almost 30 years have been trying to convince Rabbi Tovia Singer to debate Michael Brown, Yimach Shemo v'Zichro. Again, they debated already 30 years ago, and they want to debate again. And Rabbi Tovia Singer refused to even entertain it. Why? He won the first debate. He didn't lose. Why doesn't he want to debate him again? Because Michael Brown is a scam artist. And he manipulated the recordings. He manipulated a lot of different things. And he did a lot of different things that are against the rules of debate. So with people like that, there's no debate. Same thing goes with that monster. What's his name? Yitzhak Shapiro. That monster, Yitzhak Shapiro, that calls himself a Messianic Jew, but definitely looks like he just came out of a crazy hospital. He wanted to debate me. And we have no interest in debating anybody. We just print out the information, and you do what you want with it. You want to go to Gehenom, don't follow it. You want to go to Gan Eden, follow it. That's it. Very simple. And Baruch Hashem, we brought a lot of proofs against Christianity, but he made a couple of videos trying to defend it, but really just stepped on his own feet. But I actually asked about who this person is when we were doing research on the person, and I actually got fantastic information. When there was a potential debate that was supposed to happen between him and Rabbi Tovia Singer, Rabbi Tovia Singer was actually debating this monster. Because Shapiro did not exactly, wake up yesterday, he realized that he's going to lose. So what did he do? He simply tried to get Rabbi Tovia Singer arrested by calling the authorities of some foreign country that he was in and saying he's a terrorist and saying he's a crazy person and so on and so forth. Simply try to get him arrested so he doesn't show up to the debate. So after that, obviously they're not going to debate. No one's going to debate such a psychopath. The point is, Rabotai, why am I telling you all this stuff? Number one, we always have to make sure that we fulfill our chovah of insulting idolatry. The Gemara in Masechet Megillah says, what is a Jew? What's a Jew? Who's called a Jew? Who's called a Jew? What? Says somebody because his mom's a Jew? There's a lot of people that their mom's a Jew and they're not exactly Jews. Who's a Jew? Gemara says Mordechai Yehudi. Mordechai is a Jew. Yeah, but why is Mordechai a Jew? Because Mordechai was a Jew because he defended Judaism against idolatry. Batya Bat Paro is a Jew even though before Judaism. She's still a Jew. Why? She defended Judaism, she defended Torah against idolatry. Anyone that fights idolatry, that's a Jew. That's a Jew. The Ramban, Alav Shalom, 800 years ago was put in a position where he was the only one that can and would defend Judaism. Knowing that it's very likely that they're going to kill him immediately, either during the debate, after the debate. Nonetheless, Hashem protected him. He made a very big Kiddush Hashem, and he destroyed Christianity in a 4-day debate. 4-day debate. But after this debate, the Christians don't like taking a loss. So they pretended like they won, telling different people that they won. And then they decided to go tell the Jews they won also. So they went to the synagogue where the Ramban was actually staying at, because he wasn't from Barcelona. And decided to give a lecture in the synagogue. about Christianity, thinking the Ramban's over there, but he's not going to say anything. Because why? Because the debate's over. Debate's over. If he says something, we're going to kill him now. Now there's no rules. During the debate, the king promised him he's not going to kill him. But now, all bets are off. They thought that the Ramban is scared of them. So as soon as they finished talking, the Ramban gave such a lecture, the walls did Teshuva. The walls did Teshuva. The king walked out, some of his other people walked out, and a few stayed behind. Destroying Christianity all over, and this is actually also one of the things that's published in Iggeret HaRamban. The point is, Rabotai, is that in order to become a Gdol Ador, it's not just about reading a lot of books, or being very smart, or having photographic memory, or doing a few big mitzvot here and there. In order to become a giant, you have to know, rule number one is that you have to fight for the Torah under all costs, at any place, at any time. It's part of the reason why the Torah is called Sefer HaMilchamot. There's a pasuk in the Torah that says Sefer HaMilchamot. Sefer HaMilchamot means the book of wars. Rashi on the place says, what's book of wars? It says Torah. What wars? Wars to defend the Torah. Wars to defend the Torah. So now the Ramban, everything and anything that he touched, he made sure that it's full of Kedusha. He made sure to check it, and double check it, and triple check it, to make sure that this is the right representation of our Holy Torah. And not just spit things out because they sound good. I'll tell you a good story just to make you feel good. So much so that after this debate, after winning the debate, the Ramban realized that some people may fall for the trick of thinking that the Christians won because they didn't hear it, they weren't there, and there's a lot more Christians in the world than there are Jews. So what did he do? He wrote down word for word what both sides said. And from this place, we have this till today, Baruch Hashem. 800 years have passed. 800 years have passed. Not a single Christian in the world can respond to these questions that the Ramban brought up. Meaning, if anybody ever wants to win a debate, all they need to do is master this section of the Ramban. That's it. You don't need anything else. Actually, if you add anything else, you're probably going to ruin it. You're going to ruin it. Why? You have one of the biggest giants that ever lived. Not just 800 years ago, ever. Put everything on a silver platter. But people think that they're smart and clever, and they do their own thing and sometimes ruin it. The point is that after he put this into paper and he publicized it, the church did not like this very much and put out in essence, a bounty on his head. But since the king promised them that they're not going to kill him, gave him a little bit of a warning and allowed him to escape. Of course, it's all a Kadosh Baruch Hu, protecting anyone that's fulfilling a mitzvah will never get hurt from it. And the Ramban, at almost 70 years old, a little over 70 years old, escaped and went to Eretz Yisrael. After he arrived at Eretz Yisrael, he settled in Akko first, but then on his, I believe it was the second year, he decided that he's going to spend Rosh Hashanah in Yerushalayim. He was expecting to see the beauty, the glory, all the things he ever learned in his life by Yerushalayim. He thought, I'm going to see some beauty there. When he arrives in Yerushalayim, he writes a letter to his son. Mamash, it breaks your heart. He tells his son, Yerushalayim is in ruins. The holier the place, the more Hashem destroyed it. You would think the opposite, but nonetheless it is. The holier it is, the more Hashem destroyed it. But he decided to take one of the abandoned houses over there, turn it into a Beit Knesset, have his Rosh Hashanah over there. He made a very, very well-known discourse, a big lecture, if you will, about Rosh Hashanah that's published also in Kitvei Ramban. B'ezrat Hashem will go over that as well throughout the series. But you see the depth of each one of their words. The Chachamim that reviewed his work, if you're a Chacham, you have to review his work. You can't be a Chacham without it. And the Chachamim that reviewed his work, they went to the extent of saying, in all of his work, imagine a set of books bigger than anything you have here, covering the Gemara. Then more enough books on the entire Torah. Then more books on Alachot. Then more books on Kabbalah. Ooh, wow, how much Kabbalah. Then more books on Mussar. Then more, every subject you can imagine. Philosophy, science, everything you can imagine, he wrote about it. They say all of that work, all of it, from beginning to end, there's not a single letter in there. Meaning, every letter, not every word, not every sentence, not every paragraph, every letter was placed at the right place, at the right time. Mamash, like a Sefer Torah. So, when you review his work, you realize this is big, but for us to review what he wrote in the Gemara or the Torah, aside from it taking probably a lifetime, you have to be a big Chacham to do that. And I think that we have to start small. So we start with one of the most famous letters that was ever written, if not the most famous letter, called Iggeret HaRamban, which the Ramban wrote to his son Nachman, named after his father, that was still back in Spain. The Ramban wrote him once he got to Eretz Yisrael. I believe this was the second year that the Ramban was in Eretz Yisrael, which was only a couple of years before he went to Olam Haba. And he wrote this to his son, and each and every single word in this letter can be studied, reviewed, over and over again, to the extent of making us into actual Bnei Adam. Turning us from animals, that all of us still are at some point or another, some more, some less, into human beings. Into what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to be. By destroying the horrible midot that's within our nature, that's so ingrained in our nature sometimes, we don't even realize it's bad. Sometimes you get so used to bad character traits, you don't even think it's bad. What, I haven't called you in 7, 8 years, say thank you for anything you've ever given me, never nothing, never this. So, but every time I call you, the first time I called you in 5 years, I decided to ask for something. There's nothing wrong with that. What? Meaning, people do things and they don't see anything wrong with it. What? I just saw that there was some money on the table and I took it. What? What? Why would I think it's yours? Well, my house? It's my office? I don't know, you could put 2 and 2 together. If it's my house or it's my office, if there's money there, usually it belongs to me. If you found it in the street, there's 8 billion people in the street. But if it's inside my house, it's inside my office, more times than not, it's probably mine. Oh, it's his? I didn't think about that. You didn't think about that? You didn't think about that? You didn't think about that. People don't see clearly. And even when they do something wrong, many times they're so used to it. They've done it so many times that they've gone to the point where they don't see any bad in it at all. Someone can walk around with body odor that's so hideous, you think you're in a zoo. You think that you're visiting, one of these farms that, in a farm you expect, the cows are not exactly, they don't smell like roses. You go to a farm on, Sheridan or Sterling. There's a nice cow farm over there. I want to go there one day. Every time I go there, I see all the cows. They look like they're having fun. They all look like they're stress-free, having a good time, eating some grass. But I bet you, if you get a little closer, it doesn't smell like roses over there. Why? It's cows. Some people walk around like this. But they're people, and they don't see anything wrong with it. Don't see anything wrong with it. Somebody sent me a question. Mechila mikvotchem. I want to show you examples, real life examples. You don't think I'm just the only one in the world that thinks this stuff. Somebody asked me a question today, live. Can you please tell me the halachot of flushing the toilet on the holiday in Shabbat? Because we just came back from a getaway, a weekend getaway. There was a Jewish event, and I don't know, apparently some, people there were complaining, the workers there were complaining that a certain amount of Jewish people decided not to flush the toilet. And when they complained to them, why don't you flush the toilet? It's disgusting. We're not in a zoo. They said, no, it's against our religion. It's Shabbat. It's Pesach. So this poor person asked me innocently, can you please tell me the halakha? I didn't know. I'm violating Shabbat? I'm violating the Chag by flushing the toilet? Now, they're innocent. Obviously, they're not violating Shabbat. There's no such halakha that you're not allowed to flush the toilet on Shabbat. In fact, it's a sin from the Torah to not flush the toilet, because you're causing other people harm. You're causing a chilul Hashem. But how do you explain such things? You explain such things because some people are either so disgusting, they've gotten used to disgusting, and they think that the rest of the world should also jump along in their disgusting world, or their humor and just nonchalant attitude about other people's feelings, other people's hygiene, other people's health, other people's existence, if you will, simply is not part of their thought process at all. They just want to see what you're going to do. So they go to public bathrooms and destroy the public bathroom, and you go over there and you're like, what, nobody works here? No, somebody works there. It's just that people are disgusting. Do this in your own house. Nowhere there's other people. Why do I tell you all this disgusting stuff? Because this disgusting stuff is what we see every day. Every day. You go to public bathrooms, they're disgusting. You go to hotels, disgusting. Some places, you go to Beit Knesset, you go to a store, you go anywhere, you see people, for some reason or another, have no problem sometimes acting disgusting. Why? Because they haven't learned the Iggeret HaRamban. They have gotten so used to their negative traits, they forgot they were bad. They don't realize that they were bad. They don't realize disgusting exists. And Rabotai Yekarim, there are many things that are considered disgusting. I'm showing you things that are clear and simple for you to understand, like smell, like hygiene. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu writes in the Torah, Toivat Hashem kol gvalev. Someone that's arrogant is also considered disgusting. Also considered disgusting. There are many things that are considered disgusting to Hashem. Meaning that if a person wants to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, first and foremost, stop being disgusting. Now, easy part, taking a shower, being, maintaining your hygiene, realizing there's other people in the world, that's the easy. That would take you a decision that's 5 seconds and 1 day. That's it. The rest of the stuff is a lifetime. Why? Because that means you have to work on your midot and start identifying what is considered disgusting in the eyes of my Creator. So the letter that the Ramban wrote to his son begins with humility and ends with humility, with an ultimate goal of reaching Yirat Shamayim, with an ultimate goal of reaching a level where you are viewed as beautiful in the eyes of Hashem. And every little line, every little verse can be studied in depth. But today, before we start the letter, we're going to go into a section of introducing it, trying to get a little bit of a better idea of the world around this letter, like we've talked about so far, the commentary on the letter, before the letter, the introduction. This is some of the parts that for whatever reason or another, people miss out a lot. You know, when they buy a book, many times people buy a book, I mean like a real book, like Divrei Chochmah, not Harry Potter. People buy a book, one Chacham's book or a different Chacham's book, whether it be Meshilat Yesharim or Kavi Yashar or whatever it is, or even just a new Chumash. For whatever reason or another, people feel like it's perfectly fine and a given to skip the introduction. The author's introduction, the editor's introduction, the translator's introduction, whoever worked on this book usually wrote an introduction. And they skip it just to go to the meat right away. I personally think this is a very big mistake. It's a very big mistake. Number one is because everyone knows that your first impression better be good. If it's not good, most likely we're not moving forward. A book takes a while to build up. Usually most books take a while to build up. They don't go to the climatic point of the book right away. It takes time to build it up. It takes time to even connect to the book, sometimes a few chapters. But the introduction, the preface, the part that the author, the editor, the translator, whoever worked on his book, this body of work, whoever did it, the introduction, that's in essence the best of the best. If the intro is bad, you can rest assured the rest of it's garbage. Why? Because that person is not writing the intro in the beginning. You're reading it in the beginning. He's writing the intro after he sacrificed years of his life writing the whole book. Pretty much telling you, this is what to expect. But in a very short form. Instead of 5, 6, 700 pages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. So you'll see that there's a lot of wisdom in the introductions. For example, I remember when I first listened to the series Mesilat Yesharim by Rav Mizrahi Sheikh. I think that the introduction, the first page of the Mesilat Yesharim was probably the longest part of the entire series. I think it was 2 lectures, if I remember correctly. Whereas the rest of it, which are chapters, which are much longer than the introduction, the rest of it were usually 1 lecture each. But the introduction, 2 lectures. Why? If you have a good introduction, you're going to know what to do with the rest. If you don't have a good introduction, you're going to be confused. You don't know where you are. Who is this person? Why should I listen to him? There's a lot of questions. So, Iggeret HaRamban, Rabotai, as I said, it's a monumental letter that was written 800 years ago as a letter from the Ramban to his son. And of course, if the Ramban wrote this letter, which is only a couple of pages, telling specific instructions to his son of how to get to become the ultimate servant of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, obviously he knows that his son is capable of doing it. So, tonight's shiur, I forgot, but I thought about it the whole time, I just didn't know when to say it. Tonight's shiur is also going to be for Refuah Shlema, for Renee Bat Rose, and also Sarah Bat Anat, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Levana Bat Sarah, David ben Nesriya, Doris Bat Jora, and all of Am Yisrael Bezrat Hashem will have Refuah Shlema, Refuat HaNefesh, Refuat HaGuf. So, the Iggeret HaRamban is a way for the Ramban to give his son a set of instructions of how to manage his life from that day moving forward for the rest of his life. By the way, if anybody has in mind to lower the air conditioner to normal temperature, it's lowered. It's already lowered in the tikkun still, apparently. Okay. So when I go out to Shemayim, I say, you don't have to send me to Gehinnom, I was already in there. So some of the commentaries that the Chachamim put on the Ramban on this letter is this, where the Meulefet Sapirim published this letter, and is one of the main places that have published this letter and put commentary on it, and it says the following. He instructed his son to read this letter once every week, to inspire him to act with humility, to read it every week, to teach it to his children, so that they might learn it by heart, in order to train them in their youth to fear God. Now this may seem like a very simple instructions, very simple commentary. But even the commentary did not get to where it is simply by their own opinion. Why? There's a pasuk in the Torah that says this. There's a pasuk in the Torah that says, Ekev anava yirat Hashem. In Proverbs 22, verse number 4, Shlomo Melech says, the result of humility is yirat Shamayim. Why do we teach humility? Because it'll get you to yirat Shamayim. Which means that if you see an arrogant person walking around, you don't have to ask or even think whether he has yirat Shamayim or not. It's impossible to have it. One goes with the other. You have yirat Shamayim, eventually you'll reach humility. You have humility, you will reach yirat Shamayim. Why? Because in essence, what are you doing? With either whether it's humility or yirat Shamayim, in essence you are identifying that there are eyes that are watching you at all times. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching you at all times. If every person here, every person watching, every person that will watch in the future, this lecture, decides to take one thing from the entire series, which I have no idea how many lectures are going to be, just takes one thing. From now on, I'm going to act as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching me all the time. That's it. Nothing else he listens to. Everything else goes in the deleted box. That person becomes tzaddik gamur. That person becomes a perfect tzaddik, perfect tzaddikah. Why? If you believe, and you act as if you believe, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching you at all times, automatically you will start acting differently. Over time you'll start seeing that certain things that have become normal to you are not exactly acceptable behavior, are not exactly what should be normal. You start questioning yourself. Why? Because somebody's watching. In companies that are big companies, everybody messes around. Most employees, they don't work the whole time. You pay them 9 to 5, but they don't work 9 to 5 really. People say, oh yeah, I have a 9 to 5. Yeah, if you work 3 hours a day, it's a miracle. They don't work 9 to 5. They mess around. They go, they smoke, they eat, they chit-chat, they hide in the stock room, they hide inside the stock itself. They do stuff. Yeah. Why? Because they don't believe anybody's watching. Because they assume that the only one that's watching is the boss. And the boss is on break. The boss went to a meeting. The boss is watching a different department, a different factory, a different place. They forgot there's a bigger boss. It's called HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always watching. He's never on break. He's never in a meeting. And when you're sitting over there stealing your boss's time, he writes in the book, thief. Thief, stole 3 hours from his boss, doing absolutely nothing when the boss specifically instructed him, please, during those 3 hours, make sure you finish the reports. Make sure you finish the research. Make sure you take care of this, this, and this. Now, in some cases, some bosses are lenient. They know you're going to mess around. They don't really care. Why? Because that's just the way of the company. Like, for example, Google is one of those companies, in the technology world apparently has become very, very common. They have like a different approach because they have different type of employees, and they actually help their employees waste time. They help them. They give them a game room, a lunch room, a sleep room. They have a room just to go to sleep in the middle of the day. They're paying you for it. Go sleep. They have you a little place. You go sleep over there, go play basketball, play all types of things. Why? Because they're not measuring you on the number of hours that you're working. They're measuring you based on performance. You have certain deadlines. You have certain things that we're going to measure you on. We're going to give you 6 months, a year, 2 years. We're going to invest in you. We're going to pay you a few $100,000 a year. And we want something that's worth a few $1 million in 2 years from now. Do whatever you want. Play, don't play. It doesn't make a difference to us. Work even on your own application, your own side business. Doesn't make a difference to us. But in 2 years from now, deadline. 6 months from now, deadline. Now, you may think, oh yeah, so maybe the guy is going to waste time for 2 years and then eventually he's going to catch up. No, my friend. It doesn't work that way. Why? Because the reality is, if you're going to do something meaningful, it's going to take you some time. It's going to take you some time. Yes, you could mess around a little bit and waste time a little bit, but you're going to have to be a relatively focused person to get to the promised land, to get to some significant project. So, if you're going to be eating beastly and bamba all day, within 2 years, you're not going to have a job. And that's a very, very bad decision to lose such a job if you already have one like that. The point is that not all companies are the same. Some companies will allow you to waste time because they know that's just part of the job. I remember I had a friend in New York. He used to have restaurants. And I asked him one time, how do you run all these restaurants when you're never actually there? You know, you watch everything on camera here and there, but you travel a lot. Like, aren't you afraid that people are going to steal? He goes, of course they steal. I said, so why don't you fire them? He goes, no, they have to steal. Of course they steal. The job of the restaurateur, the guy that owns the restaurant, is just to make sure they don't steal too much. They leave you some. You want to be a successful restaurateur? You want to be a successful in a restaurant? You should know, get-go. They're going to steal. The employees, the waiters, the waitresses, the cooks, the chefs, the cashier, everybody. They're going to steal. For sure they're going to steal. But if you want to own the place, just make sure they don't steal too much. Leave you some. That's the way it works, apparently, in the restaurant business. Sodom and Gomorrah world that we live in. But it's true. It's true. People steal so much, they forget it's stealing. So, Shlomo HaMelech already told us that if you want to get to Yirat Shamayim, you have to start with humility, and that's in essence what the Meulefet Sapirim says that this letter is all about. This letter is about humility in order to get to Yirat Shamayim, to the fear of God. The Chida, Rav Chaim Yosef David Azulai writes in his Shem HaGdolim all types of wonderful words about this, but the thing that stood out is that he says the Ramban promises his son that any day that he should read this letter every day, and that any day that he reads this letter, he will not have any problems. And the Chidah says this is not a promise just to his son. This is a promise to anybody that's going to read this letter. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure to get this letter to the rest of the world. And the Baalei Mussar says every person should read this letter at least once per week. At least once per week so you connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chidah says, fortunate is the person who listens to the Ramban's words because he will achieve serenity and peace of mind. What are these words? Read this letter once a week at least. And if you do read it once a week, or even if you read it once a month, or you read it throughout this series, whatever the case is, you're going to see that the more times you read this letter, the more you connect to it, the more you understand different things. Bezrat Hashem, next week, I'm going to bring you guys a copy of the letter in a book. But since we didn't get it yet, and also we're not going into the letter yet, well, I didn't bring it with me. But Bezrat Hashem, I'll place the order and I'll get it for you guys. I'll bring it next week for anyone that's going to come on a regular basis. If you want to get it on your own, you could just go to artscroll.com. They sell thousands of these. There's a hard copy version, soft copy version, $3 version, $15 version, whatever version you want. The point is to read it. But it's not just the letter. The letter itself you can get for free. It's the commentary that's important. The letter you can read, but it's really important to know what the commentary is. Now, the Ramban says that when he saw how Yerushalayim was as destroyed as it is, you would think that he would take all of the people that are in Yerushalayim, they're living in ruins, places destroyed. You figure that he's going to be like, I don't know, maybe like more of like a modern day rabbi that's going to give everybody chizuk, everything's okay, you guys are tzaddikim, everybody has a share of the world to come, don't worry, the terrorist came, he shut up, but he's not going to break us up, we're going to be united, we're going to be strong, no one's going to take, that's what he's going to say to you, right? Like today's rabbi, something happens, everybody's, everybody's tzaddikim, everybody that died is a martyr, everybody that died is a tzaddik, all of a sudden, everybody's good. So you figure, he goes to Yerushalayim, you're surrounded by death, pretty much. I know my grandfather, alav shalom, Saba Gabriel, when he told those stories of what he saw during the time of the Holocaust, during World War II, they eventually got to Tripoli. They eventually got to that part of the world, and they started bombing. They started bombing civilian areas everywhere. He says people were dying. When they were throwing the bombs, people were dying in the street like flies. Flies. People were dying in hundreds and hundreds of people. Regular, not soldiers, regular people. Regular people walking around, bomb, boom. Hundreds and hundreds of people blowing body pieces everywhere. And no one knew what to do. My grandfather, unbelievable schut that he has, schuto began Eden. Mamash, it's a extraordinary. Him, and I believe one of his brothers or a couple of his brothers, they took the bodies and buried them. Took the bodies, mamash, arms, legs, Shem Hashem, I can't even think of stuff like this. And I remember my mom told me when he would come home every night, after burying all these bodies, he would be full of blood. Full of blood of the people that he buried. And my mom asked him, as a little girl, Abba, weren't you scared? You know, you go to the cemetery late at night. He would tell them stories of how he saw all types of spirits there, things moving, noises, all types of stuff. He would tell them stories about it. He goes, you know, every time I look in my hands, I see all their faces. He looks at his hands, he sees the faces of all the people he buried. He sees their faces on his hands. So my mom tells the little girl, she says, Abba, aren't you scared? He says, Binchi, my daughter, you don't need to be scared of dead people. You need to be scared of living people. Living people you're scared of. They're already dead, they're dead. So, Rabotai, when you have a place of ruins, Yom HaShoah is in a couple of days, by the way. Maybe B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow we'll talk a little bit about it. When you think about times of wars, there's no mercy. There is what the politically correct world likes to call collateral damage everywhere. But in reality, it's horrifying. So you would think the Ramban shows up to a city in ruins. There are a few Jews that stayed behind, holy Jews that stayed behind, they're there. You would think the rabbi, the Gadol Hador, he's already older, he's in his 70s, give them a nice chizuk, everybody you're okay, stay united, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you. That's what people today do. Somebody slips on a banana, everybody's okay, you all have a share of the world to come. Same thing as if they die. Somebody dies, everybody's okay. You all wear a shirt. So you don't really know what's bad because doesn't make a difference what you say, what happens. Everybody's okay. Stay united. Everybody has a world to come. So you don't really know if it's bad. Is it good what just happened now? Is it bad what just happened? Why? I got the same news. Is it Pesach? Is it Lag BaOmer? Is it Shavuot? Is it Purim? It's always the same lecture. Everybody's okay. Everybody has a share of the world to come. Love everybody. The Ramban gives a lecture. I mean, if you, you know what? To save the time, I'll just read it for you. I'll read not the whole lecture. I'll give you a little bit of an understanding. So, because I'm trying to put the words together, and Kadosh Baruch Hu is not giving it to me, and I'm telling you because I don't think you can say this any clearer. This is what he says in the lecture. Now the city's in ruins. City's in ruins. And I highlighted a little bit. So I'm going to read you what I highlighted. He says in the Gemara Masechet Avodah Zarah, the rabbi said, in the hereafter, meaning after the Mashiach comes, time Mashiach comes, this is Gemara Masechet Avodah Zarah, beginning, 2a. And hereafter, the Holy One, blessed be He, will bring a scroll of the law, meaning he will bring the Sefer Torah, and place it on his lap and say, he who has engaged in the study and observance of this Torah shall come forward and receive reward. Thereupon, aware that they can't claim that they have any share of this reward, since they didn't study the Torah, all the nations of the world will gather and assemble in confusion and trepidation. They're going to be scared to death. Why? They learn Torah, they learn Bible, they learn new false testament. They learn Muhammad, they learn a lot of junk. But by the way, this also includes all of the Jews that are learning junk. Same thing. So the Holy One, blessed is He, what is He going to say to them? What does He say to them? Don't worry, stay united, everybody has a share of the world. What is He going to say? What is He going to say? Don't come before me in confusion. Were you confused? I don't want to see you. You're confused? You don't know what to do here? Oh, that means you don't learn Torah. I don't look at you. Why? The Ramban continues. On Rosh Hashanah, all that came into the world passes before him. Pertaining to matters of this world, each one is judged to determine if he is worthy of being granted peace, riches, possessions, and honor, or whether he will be sentenced to die during that year, or to suffer visitations of affliction, sorrow, and poverty. In short, the judgment of Rosh Hashanah concerns all matters that affect the human body in this world, including life, children, sustenance. However, Rosh Hashanah does not embrace the judgment of the soul, that whether the soul is worthy of Gan Eden, an enjoyment of eternal life of the world to come, or whether it will be sentenced to Gehenom and destruction. This is, Rabotai, the beginning. This is how he starts the lecture. To a bunch of people that live in ruins. At no point does he give them, everybody's okay, everybody has a share of the world to come, don't worry, you're okay, she's okay, because we're okay, because we suffered. No point. In fact, no Chacham does that. Nobody does that. Only today, people that claim to be Chachamim do it. Which means a very, very interesting point of view that you have to look at. The Ramban, what is he actually really teaching us in few words? No matter what tragedy you have in your life, you had in your life, no matter what difficulty you have in your life, you had in your life, no matter what is going on, at no point throughout your entire life of 120 years, Be'ezrat Hashem, do you have permission from the Torah to sin? Yes, there's a Holocaust. Yes, there is a pogrom. Yes, there's an inquisition. Yes, there's a destruction. Yes, there's a lot of bad stuff. That doesn't make a difference when it comes to Torah. You still have to follow the Torah. You still have to follow the Torah. Why? Because the Torah is rules from God, the very same God that put all of these laws together. That put all of these problems together. Meaning that the Rambam is trying to teach us that the whole point of our Torah is not just for good times, not just for when things are easy, but the contrary, the opposite. It's for all the time, especially when times are difficult. You never have a get-out-of-jail-free ticket. This is why he gave a bunch of people on the head much stronger Mussar than I could ever teach. When? During one of the most difficult times in their life. Now, why does the Rambam, one of the biggest giants that ever lived in the world, feel that opposite, really, what's popular today? Why does he feel that he should give a little bit of strong conversation, Genom, Gan Eden, all types of stuff that not everybody really likes to talk about? At least not one of those subjects. Why does he feel like he should give it to people that are already struggling? Why? What makes that okay? What makes that okay? If a person understands what is our point in the world, what is the job in the world, then you'd understand that Mussar is not character development in order to improve you as a human being only. But the literal definition of Mussar is self-discipline. Self-discipline in order to attain self-control. Now, when you think about self-control, every one of us can think about at least one or two people that we know that are completely out of control. Sometimes they're out of control naturally all the time. Sometimes they look like everything's under control until something happens. Oh, she looks like she's under control, until there's no money in the bank. There's no money in the bank, or the check bounced, or I don't know, something happened. Ooh, what? All control, gone. Oh, he looks like everything is under control. Until somebody didn't pay him. Until somebody insulted him. Until somebody, cut him off on the highway. He looks like he's under control. Like, oh, he's such a happy guy. Happy guy, ha ha ha, all the time. Somebody cuts him off on the highway. All of a sudden, you see this gorilla come out. Roar! What? You're scared. You can become a little. What is those things? What are those things? The grape that they make it small. What is it called? Raisin. You become a little raisin. You become a little raisin. Next to the guy's gorilla. What happened? What did he do? Did he murder somebody you like? He cut me off. Hey, guy. Okay, he cut a lot of other people off also. You lose control. So, Mussar, Rabotai, as funny as it is, it's supposed to teach us self-control. Meaning that one of the ambitions that you're supposed to have in your life is attaining self-control and attaining perfection of your character. In simple language, being the same under all conditions. Always with a smile, always positive, always, in essence, under control. That is supposed to be your pursuit in life. Always understanding that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here, everything is under control. Not because you know that you're controlling it. No, opposite. Because you're not controlling anything. He's controlling it. Yeah, but everything's out of control. It's a flat tire, late appointment, got fired, there's no food in the fridge, there's no money in the bank, there's all types of problems, IRS is calling, government's this, all types of stuff happens. Yes. Stuff happens. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what he's doing. The point of all of the Mussar that we learn on a day-to-day basis is to try to shape our own character in order to perfect it to the point where we're always the same. We're always okay. We're always going straight. Now, of course, there are going to be sometimes the smile is bigger than others. Sometimes you're going to even have to cry. Shem Echem, somebody dies, a big rabbi dies. You have to cry. It's 3 days, you cry. But you don't lose your mind. You don't lose control. You don't lose your cool to the extent where you start doing things that are the old version of you. Why? Because if you do that, that means nothing has changed. That just means it was dormant for a while, like a volcano. A volcano is still a volcano even when it's not erupting. But no smart person is going to go play next to the volcano. Why? Because it can erupt at any moment. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want to mess with us if we're still a volcano. He says, no, you have to remove the volcano out of your life. You have to shape your character to the point where it's no longer a volcano. The Goyim tried to teach, contain your anger, contain your feelings, keep them inside, keep them inside, keep them inside. Guess what? The guy dies at 65 years old, 55 years old, 45 years old, 25 years old. Why? He's been containing it the whole time. Mussar is supposed to teach us how to shape our character in order for it not to be contained. It's simply we know, this is not good, at least from the way it looks. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what he's doing. It's not good from where it looks, from my perspective, but thank God I'm not running the show. Thank God, because I wouldn't know what to do. If I was running the show, I wouldn't know what to do. So thank God I'm not running the show, he's running the show. We keep going. I still have a job to do. I still have to go to Beit Knesset. I still have to pray. I still have to learn. I still have to work. I still have to be a father. I still have to be a mother. I still have to do all this. I still have to do everything I have to do, no matter what's happening. How do I know what to do? Just look at the Torah. It gives you an instruction set from 1 to 620. You have an instruction set. Now, in essence, what is this trying to teach us? It's trying to teach us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu really wants us to attain this self-control, to purify ourselves. And one of the ways that if a person doesn't take this into consideration, he's simply never going to attain self-control or really anything significant in his life. One of the ways to attain self-control, to attain a perfection of character, is by simply looking at what motivates you. What is motivating you to do X, Y, Z? And then review that motivation. Is that motivation pure, good, according to the Torah, or not? If it's according to the Torah, go with it. If your motivation is pure, it's according to the Torah, it has a good world around it, you're going in the right direction. With pure motivation, you're going to get to good results. Good results will ultimately make everything make sense to the extent where you're going to know, yes, it looks like it's out of control, but don't worry. If you keep doing the right thing, good things will eventually happen. When do you not have this promise? When your motivation is rotten. When your motivation is selfish. When your motivation is only for you. Only for you to benefit. Everybody else loses. I don't care what happens. Let them all die for all I care. Let them all lose for all I care. Let them all do this for all I care. You don't care about everybody else. That means the selfish motivation. A Selfish motivation like that, it's not pure. Selfish motivation like that is against the Torah. With such a motivation, you're never going to attain self-control. Why? Because you yourself are out of control. Because your motivation is off balance. It's against what you're supposed to do. This means, Rabotai, that before you make every single move, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? I'm working for such and such company. Why? Okay, I'm working to make a living. Good. You don't have to necessarily believe in all the dreams of the boss. You're working there to make a living. You're a teacher, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're, archaeologist, whatever you are. You're working there to make a living. Your real life begins after work. Fine. But now, you're still at work now, right? Okay. You're there. If you were the boss, watching you now, watching somebody like you, would you be happy with you? If you were the boss, watching somebody working like you really, now, would you be happy with you? When you're playing with your phone all day, when you're sleeping in the bathroom for an extra half hour because last night you went out and had a couple of drinks, but you're pretending you have a bad stomach, but in reality you're just tired, so you're sleeping in the bathroom. Like, would you hire you? If the answer is no, that means that there's a very serious problem here. Your motivation is to make money. Fine, no problem making money. You need to make money. Money is a tool we need to use in the world. But you're going about it in a very rotten way, a very selfish way. You're assuming that you're entitled to it. You're assuming they just have to pay you all this money because you went to school, or because you showed up, or because you have a good-looking eyelash or something. I don't know. Like, that's wrong. That's a rotten motivation. It's a rotten motivation. You have a partnership with somebody? Great. You're going to do a partnership, your business, his business. Obviously, you're trying to partner because you're trying to make 1 + 1 = 3. You're trying to make more together than you would make by yourself. Fine. But are you being honest with this partner? Or are you trying to wheel and deal on the side? You're trying to cheat him in a different way. You're trying to make sure that all the customers that pay cash, that doesn't go in the register. All the customers that they could do something on the side, pay you a little bit of partnership on the side, you're not going to tell them. So you get the customers to do second business with you. First business with both of you, second business just with you. And that's what happens in a lot of partnerships. In the beginning, everything looks fine. One guy needs money. The other guy needs, equipment or talent or whatever it is. They join. Everybody's good. Kumbaya. Everybody's happy. They make money a little bit. But eventually, somebody gets greedy. They say, listen, I'm working harder than him. He's working harder than this. So what do? They start something on the side. So all the customers come to the main company. They say, listen, you ever need me, call me. Here's a card, but the phone number is his cell phone number. Phone number, the email is his personal email. So when he calls him finally 2, 3, 4 months later, he does the job, but on his private company, not the company that came. That's stealing. That's 100% stealing. You go to Shemayim, this person goes to Shemayim, thief. What happens to a thief? A thief comes back to a Gilgul. Sometimes he'll come back as a screw. Sometimes he'll come back as a dog. Sometimes he'll come back as a wall. He'll come back as something to pay back the person he stole. You stole a screw, you'll come back as a screw. You stole some money, you'll come back as a bank teller, ATM machine. Why? You're not allowed to go to Gan Eden as a thief. Can't. But this happens normally. Why? Because people do not review their actions and the purity of their actions. They only look at things from their perspective. This is also what makes it very difficult to work with people. When you know this stuff, it's very difficult to work with people. Why? Because you see people's colors. You see that, yeah, they want you to work with them, but in reality, they want to have everything. They don't want to give you anything. They just simply want you to be their workhorse. They get all the benefit. They get all the donations. They get all the marketing. They get all the fame. They get everything. And you just, thank you. Wow, you're tzaddik. Good job. Go. Yeah, chazak ubok. You're the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation. You go. Okay, but I'm going to pay. I'm going to eat. Hashem's going to send you. Hashem's going to send you. Hashem's going to send you. It's very hard to work with people like this. Why? Because you see that if the motivation behind what they do with you is impure, most likely it's impure everywhere else also. So, for this reason, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the mitzvot. Because naturally, our motivation is impure. Naturally, our motivation is selfish. Naturally, we can only see ourselves in every equation. Naturally. That's the way we are naturally. When you have, imagine this, you're hungry. You're hungry. Now, you want to eat. Right? You're hungry, you want to eat. One thing leads to the other. Now, you're going to come up with, I don't know, you have $10 in your pocket. What do you think? I'm going to get something for $10 to make something to eat, right? That's your natural instinct. What is it supposed to be? What it's supposed to be? Wait, maybe my wife's hungry too. So maybe I should get something a little cheaper than $10 so both of us can eat. Maybe my kid's hungry too. Maybe my kid's hungry too, so maybe I should get something cheaper to make it for both of us. I don't have to eat a burger the size of Guam. I can eat just enough to satiate myself. What? Because I only have $10. Now, if I only have $10 and I eat, and I'm fine, but then I finally get home. Or, and the kid's hungry, the wife's hungry, and I don't have another $10. Then what? What, they're going to go, I'm going to be okay, and they're not. Naturally, you think about yourself. Supernaturally, you think about everybody else. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us mitzvot, and then the Chachamim say, לא ניתנו המצוות, אלא לצרף את הבריות. The sole purpose of God's mitzvot is to refine and purify mankind. Where do we know this from? Where do we learn this from? We actually learn this from a very interesting mitzvah. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 22, first verse. A very interesting mitzvah. It says, you shall not see the ox of your brother or his sheep or goat cast off and hide yourself from them. You shall surely return them to your brother. In so many words, you see that one of your brothers lost something. You saw that his ox, his donkey, his something went astray, ran away from him. And you know it's his. You know it's his. But he's not around. It's a big field. I mean, it's 50, 60, 100 acres. He's back, 20 acres ago. So if you take this bull into your camp, he's not going to tell. It's not like the bull has a name on it. You put it into your place, he's not going to be able to tell. Just like if you saw one of your friends, he doesn't have to be really your friend. Like friends meaning is just a fellow Jew. You saw he drops, he takes something out of his wallet, and $200 or $300 fall out of his pocket, but he doesn't notice. It falls on the floor. Now, you could take the $300 that he dropped. You could take the donkey. You could take the bull, and no one will ever know that it belongs to someone else. Why? Because the $300 doesn't have his name on it. The donkey doesn't have his name on it. The bull doesn't have his name on it. You can put him with the rest of your cattle and everything else, and you're fine. You're finished. You can put the $300 in your pocket. No one can ever prove it's his $300. Torah says, don't do this. You're not allowed to do this. Why? What are you going to tell me? Oh, it's not nice. I give you 500 reasons of why it's perfectly nice. It's nice because now the $300 is going to help me do mitzvot. I'm going to give it to Kiruv. I'm going to give it to some homeless guy. This guy's rich anyway. He doesn't need the $300. Maybe he stole the $300. Oh, I give you reasons from here to next year of why it's very nice for me to take the $300. Why does the Torah say don't do it? Why? If you see your brother suffering, even if he doesn't realize that something is hurting him, even if he doesn't realize that his current status is bad for him, even if he doesn't realize he's eating poison, he's living a life of poison, his life is radioactive, it's terrible. Even if he doesn't realize it, you sit there and do nothing about it, you might as well kill the guy. Why? Because it's not human. It's not human behavior to see another fellow Jew, another fellow human being suffer, and you just do nothing about it. In fact, it's specifically given us as an example from an animal. Why? You're not even allowed to see an animal suffer and do nothing about it. Because if you can just see an animal, see a human being suffer, and it doesn't bother you, you can see somebody lose. You can see somebody get hit. You could see somebody suffering pain, and it doesn't bother you, you have lost your humanity. One of the tests that the evil Nazis gave their soldiers before they decided whether they're going to accept them or not, especially when it came to the ones that worked for Mengele, Yimach Shemo v'Zichro, they would give them specific tests because Mengele was mamash malach hamavet. I've told you guys a couple of stories about him, Yimach Shemo. He would take Jewish people and perform all types of horrible, evil tests without any anesthesia, without any painkillers. You just simply cut them open just to see what happens. Give them drugs, all types of horrible, horrible things. B'ezrat Hashem, maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. But he himself, obviously we know this is not a human being. This is Malach HaMavet himself. But what about all the other people that worked for him? All the soldiers, all the other people that were mamash. If you ever saw a Holocaust film, you see these people are mamash. They're taking bodies and just throwing it like it's a sack. And they're eating a sandwich, and they're perfectly happy. They're taking pictures of it. They're happy. They're smoking cigarettes. Like, it's like nothing. There are thousands of dead people next to you, and they're just eating a sandwich. They're joking around. Ha ha ha, hoo hoo, like nothing. How? How do you get to that level of insanity? One of the ways they tested that this person is qualified to be a Nazi. Qualified to be a Nazi. Wasn't a test of a paper. You know how it started? They give them a living cat. They give the Nazi, before he became a Nazi, they give him a living cat. Okay, you see this cat? It's cute, right? All right, we want you to take off his head out of his body with your own hands, though. No knife, with your own hands. That's the test. If you can't do that, you cannot be part of the army. You have to murder something living, innocent, and alive with your own hands. If you can do that, you can be a Nazi. Now, all of us are shocked with this, right? Rabotai, this is still happening right now, just in a different way. A lot of us see people struggling all the time. We do nothing. You see a homeless guy in the street. You have $3-4 in your pocket. You have $5 in your pocket you don't need. You see the guy struggling. You don't know. Give him the $2. Give him $3. If you have it, you don't have it, you don't have it. You see somebody came to the Beit Knesset. He looks a little weird. He smells a little weird. He acts a little weird. But he's looking for tzedakah. And it's like annoying because you really just came here to pray. Yeah, but he came here for money too. You came here to pray. He came here to make a living. Don't make fun of him. Don't say, hey, go, go, go. He's in that position. You're in that position. People see their brothers and sisters living a life that guarantees them Gehenom for eternity because they're Mechalel Shabbat, because they're going against Hashem on a regular basis, and they themselves, oh, I keep Shabbat, oh, I'm married to a Jew, oh, I keep mitzvot. Okay, but yeah, your brother, your cousin, your neighbor, your stranger in the shul, you saw him drive to shul on Shabbat. You saw him eat pig. You saw him violate Pesach. How come you didn't say nothing? You saw your fellow Jew guaranteeing himself. Guarantee, Mark, guarantee according to Ramban, Shulchan Aruch, Zohar, Gemara, Tosfot, every single book ever written in Torah guarantees this person's going to gain. No, I'm not coming out. And you just sit there and look pretty. No, it's not my business. It's not my business that he violates Shabbat. Why do I care? So you can see your fellow Jew living a life that's the opposite of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants for him. He's driving on Shabbat. She's driving on Shabbat. He's marrying a Goya. She's marrying a Goy. He's acting immodest. She's acting immodest. They're doing things that are against Hashem. And you say nothing? You, my friend, are worse than a Nazi. Why? Because at least the Nazi said, I'm a Nazi. That's what I do. I'm a bad person. I'm a Nazi. But you, my friend, you claim to be tzaddik. You're a Jew. You're Eved Hashem. As Eved is an Alaim. You're a Paro. You cannot see a Jew that you're somehow connected to continue living a life of sins and say nothing about it. You have to do something. If you don't have speaking skills, don't speak. I'll speak for you. Give him a CD. You don't have money for a CD? I'll give it to you for free. You don't have the CD itself? Take a link from YouTube, from this lecture, from any lecture we've ever made. Send it to them on a text message. Send it to them on an email. Oh, I don't know if they're going to... Don't do any cheshbonot shamayim. Don't do any accounting from heaven of what he likes, what he doesn't like, what he'll accept, what he doesn't accept. Oh, maybe I spoke to somebody yesterday. I told him, you have to tell people the truth. You have to do this, you have to do that. Yeah, but you could turn them off. I said, I'm sorry, you cannot turn off a Mechalel Shabbat. You cannot turn off somebody that's already married to a Goy. They're already as off as can be. You cannot turn coal into something more black. A life that's against Hashem is as black as it gets. Now, he doesn't realize it. She doesn't realize that she's living a life against Hashem. She doesn't realize it. But you do. You have to show them, hey, this life that you're living, I have a suggestion. What is it? Listen to this guy. You finished. You finished. Next time you see him, did you listen? Oh, not yet. Oh, you should listen. You want to come over to our house? We'll listen together? Follow up. Do something. Do something. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, I'm busy. I got my own life. I got my own problems. I got my own struggles. Who has time for this? So, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us specific mitzvot in order to refine our character and make us more human beings and less animal. And one of the very well-known, very famous things that Jews around the world know, even if they're not religious, is Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Lazeh. All of Am Yisrael are responsible for each other. Now, sometimes you're responsible to help each other financially, sometimes you're responsible to help each other spiritually, sometimes both. The point being is that this is supposed to be one of the primary focuses of a Jewish person's life. And better yet, it's also supposed to be one of the primary focuses of a non-Jewish person's life. One of the primary responsibilities of Noahides in the world is to get more people to follow the Torah, whether it's to be Noahides or to be more religious Jews. It's one of their goals. That's what they get reward for. But if everybody's just going to worry about themselves, we're going to live in a very, very horrible world. Now, a lot of people say, yeah, I'm really busy, I work a lot, I do this, I do that. No one's asking you to quit your job. No one's asking you to start touring the country giving lectures for free. No one's asking you to take your entire bank account, your entire savings account, your entire retirement account and donate it. No one's asking you to do that. Yes, every person has a responsibilities, has a life, has so on and so forth. But let's really test if your lack of doing, your lack of contributing, your lack of action is because you're so busy or because you don't care. Here's a question. What do you do on your free time? Now, don't tell me you don't have free time. Everybody has free time. In fact, most of our time is free. People have so much free time they spend extra time in the bathroom, looking at videos on the internet, playing on Facebook, hiding from the family. People have so much free time, they just take a nap in the middle of the afternoon. Why? I didn't have anything to do. I wanted to burn some time. They chain smoke. They do all types of things just to burn time. People have a lot of free time. What do you do on your free time? Tell me. What do you do on your free time? You have extra time. You have 24 hours a day. What do you do with those few hours? You have 15 minutes? You have an hour? You have 2. What do you do with that hour a day? What do you do? You just sit there, look at nothing? Yeah, but you do something. What do you do? If you do something that's connected to helping others, it's connected to getting people closer to Gan Eden, then you care. But if you still don't on your free time, if you still don't with the extra money that you don't need, if every single thing is only for something else, then it's not because you're too busy. It's because you don't care. Just like a crucible separates when you take a gold, for example, gold is not 100% pure. Gold has other metals in it. So they put it into a crucible. They heat it up and so on, in order to separate the purity of the gold from everything else. Shlomo HaMelech says in Proverbs 27, verse 21, that, let's look at this, it's too much small print. It says, מצרף לכסף וכול הזהב ואיש לפי מעללו. It says a refining pot is for silver and a crucible is for gold, and a man according to his praises. So the Chachamim say, what is Shlomo HaMelech saying here? What does it have to do putting gold in a crucible, silver, separating the junk from the gold and the silver? What does it have to do with what a person praises? What does it have to do with it? Rabbi Yaron Reuven explains, he says, what Shlomo HaMelech is trying to tell you is that in Shamayim, when they evaluate you, when they evaluate what you did with your time, that extra time you did, when they evaluate what you did with the extra money that you didn't really need, that savings account, when they evaluate what you did and who you really are, they're going to want to see what's the net. What's really you? Now when you find gold in a mountain or on the ground or something, it's not pure gold. It has other junk in it. It has a little rock, has some other metals, has stuff in it. You put it in the crucible. Once you heat it up and it's lava again. Why? Because all we want to get is what's the net, what's actually left from this huge boulder that we found, that we saw that there's gold in it, there's some silver in it. What's left? Because all what's left, that's what I care. I care about the net. Net, what's left of this huge boulder? What do I have? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ounces? Good. Okay, that's what I have. I know it's not going to be 3 tons, but out of 3 tons, if I get 1 ounce, that's a good idea. It's fine. Shlomo Melech says, in Shamayim, they're going to measure you the same way. They're going to say, okay, fine. Listen, you were busy. You had work. You were married. You had kids running around the house. You had all stuff you were doing. Fine, no problem. You had a lot of stuff to do. Fine, right? But net, what came out of all of it? What came out? When you had the free time, when you had the extra money, when the extra change, the little pushka box, all the other stuff, like what came out of all of it? What came out of all of it? You know how you're going to know? Based on what you praise in the world. Based on what you say wow to. That's what you care about. That's what you're going to invest into. If during that time there was extra time, there was time to burn, you watched TV, you play sports with your friends, you took a nap, you went for a 7th meal of the day, you that's what you did, that's you. That's your net. That's who you are. And Shamayim say, oh, he's a hamburger. He's a TV. He's a imaginary football player. He's all this, he's that, that's him. That's the net, because all the other stuff, work and family and kids, all this, he has to do that stuff to survive. But how do we know who he is? What does he do with the extra stuff? What is the stuff that motivates him? When he sees something, wow. What does he say wow to? That's him. That's him. This, Rabotai, is what each one of us has to evaluate. What is our motivation? Because naturally, if we do not follow the rules of the Torah, our natural nature will be very harsh, very selfish, very unreasonable, and no different than any animal in a zoo. If you do not have an instruction set that's divine, the Ramban says, nothing separates you from the donkey that you're riding. There's no difference between the two of you. Why? He's alive, you're alive. He eats, you eat. He gets hungry, he eats, you get hungry, you eat. He procreates, you procreate. He sleeps, you sleep. He does whatever he feels like, you do whatever you feel like. There's no difference between you. But you're not an animal, that's the problem. He's doing right, you're not an animal. He's doing his job, you're not. You're doing his job. Who's doing your job? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us all of these mitzvot in order to accustom us to a life of compassion, sensitivity, a life that takes other people into account, where before we decide whether we're going to go somewhere or not, we would think, who else would want to come with me? Maybe I could bring somebody with me. Before we buy something for ourselves, we think maybe somebody else needs the money more than I do, need the stuff. We start thinking about the world around us a lot more. To the extent where if a person is truly pure, he thinks about the world around him all the time. If a person's impure, all they can think about is themselves. All they can think about is their own problems. All they can think about is their own life. All they can think about, how do I look? How do I this? How do I? All they have is I. There's no somebody else. All it's I. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to get out of this trend, get out of this pattern that is our natural self. But there's only one way to do it, which is by using His Torah. Now, if a person starts caring about things as simple as an animal, things as simple as a neighbor, things as simple as his own children, things as simple as his spouse, things that are simple to care for, just the world around you, he can start becoming more and more like Hashem, that cares about everybody else around him. But if all she thinks about is herself, this person is no different than an animal. Now, the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat gives a very interesting pasuk as an example. On page 133b, they have a debate. What is the debate? Debate is, what if you have to do Brit Milah on Shabbat? You do Brit Milah on Shabbat. According to Halakha, even though technically the cutting, the blood, all that stuff is, you're not supposed to do it on Shabbat. You're not allowed to slaughter on Shabbat. But Brit Milah, since we are commanded to do it on the 8th day, if the baby was born a natural birth, you have to do it on the 8th day, on Shabbat. Right? Okay. That's the halakha. But he said, what if you have somebody came to a Brit Milah, but he messed up. He didn't cut the whole thing. He didn't, with the little baby, sometimes it's easy because they're very small. So it happens, sometimes you mess up. Shem Hashem, if you don't bring an expert, I've heard tragic stories about stuff like this. So you have to make sure that you don't just pick anybody off the street. Brit Milah happens, but sometimes people mess up. Even the best of the best mess up. They mess up, things happen. They don't cut a certain part. Or they cut too much. Something happens. So Gemara asks, what happens if he left over a piece of skin that was supposed to be cut? He left it over. Now, it doesn't hurt the baby anymore or any less. The baby's 8 days old. Can he come back on Shabbat? It's still Shabbat. Can he come back on Shabbat and cut it? So one side says, absolutely, he has to come back. The other side says, absolutely not. What, are you out of your mind? Why? He says, listen, you're allowed to violate Shabbat. The one that says, no, you're not allowed. You're allowed to violate Shabbat because the Brit Milah. Once he cut already, that's it. Finished the Brit Milah. The fact that it's not perfect Brit Milah, he still fulfilled his what he's supposed to. It's not the most beautiful Brit Milah, but nonetheless, it's a Brit Milah. He has no permission to do it again on Shabbat. He can come back on Sunday, he can come back on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, but he cannot come back on Shabbat. Why? Because he no longer has the permission to violate Shabbat to fix the Brit Milah. The other side said, no, you're wrong. We have a commandment from the Torah. What's the commandment from the Torah? Ze li ve'anveu. When Am Yisrael was crossing the ocean, crossing the Sea of Reeds, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave prophecy to all of Am Yisrael. They all saw what was happening in the heavens. Little babies, little adults, everybody saw what was happening in the heavens to such an extent that women that were pregnant, the stomach became apparently transparent, and people saw the baby pointing at Shemaim. Ze li ve'anveu. This is my God, and I will beautify him. The little baby in the stomach, that's God. Guys, that's God right there. That's what it says. Pasuk in the Torah. Ze li ve'anveu. This is God, and I will beautify him. So Chamim say, what do we learn from this? We learn a lot of things from this. From this pasuk, we learn they're supposed to beautify the mitzvot. Buy a beautiful tzitzit, buy a beautiful talit, Buy beautiful tefillin. Don't buy the $300 homeless ones you found on eBay. And you're not even sure if they're for Jews or not. Maybe it's for some Christian or something. Put them on. Buy a nice set of tefillin. Be an adult. No, I have tefillin for my bar mitzvah. Yeah, but you're 37, buddy. Your tefillin should have been retired 20 years ago. Okay, it's supposed to last, I don't know, 10, 20 years, but hey, you were a bar mitzvah kid back then. Your arm was half the size. Buy a nice set of tefillin. You see people drive a $150,000 car to the Bekneset, the talit, they borrow from the shul. They borrow the one from the shul that's free. Go buy yourself a talit for a couple $100. That's nice. Go buy a talit. Go buy something nice. You have the guy, he still has coffee stains on it. Go buy a nice talit. Go buy a nice tefillin. What do you think? You could take your car to Shemaim? Point is, Rabotai, when people do mitzvot, they think that they should look for discounts. People sometimes like to make fun. They ask you, oh, nice etrog. Why? Where'd you get this? Oh, I told my guy from such and such. Wow, how much was it? $300, $400, $500 for the etrog. Like, what are you, crazy? They fooled you. I say, how come they fooled me? It's like, yeah, my etrog got for $30. I say, your etrog, we're not even sure if it's a lemon or it's an etrog. Mine's an etrog. But why? Why is it okay for me to spend $300, $400 for an etrog and him $30? Because he doesn't understand that the mitzvah is not, Hashem is not asking you, oh, please do a mitzvah, I need you to do it. He wants you to want to do it. How do you show you have a desire to do the mitzvah? By doing mitzvot in a beautiful way. Show him you want to wear tefillin by buying a nice set of tefillin. Don't look for the cheapest one if you can afford something more expensive. If you can't afford, you can't afford. But if you can afford to spend $50, $100, $200,000 on a car, surely you could spend a couple of $1,000s on tefillin. If you could spend $500,000 on a house, surely you could spend a few $100s on a talit. Surely you could spend a few $100s on a etrog. Surely you could do a lot of things better. But you go to the supermarket, oh wow, these cookies, $8? No, I'm gonna get something else. Yeah, but it's kosher for Pesach. Yeah, we're not gonna eat cookies this Pesach. You're not gonna eat cookies. Why? Because it's $8. Yeah, but your car outside is $190,000. But you're worried about the $8 cookies. Why? Because they don't understand they're supposed to beautify the mitzvah. Beautify the mitzvah. Why? That's what a Kadosh Baruch Hu is telling us in this pasuk is one of the lessons Chachamim say. But then the Chachamim say, that's not the only thing we learn from there. First thing we learn is that Am Yisrael was pointing and says, this is God and I'll beautify him. Second thing we learn from this verse is to say, oh, you want to beautify it? Hashem says, beautify my mitzvot. If you're going to go spend money on modest clothes, spend money on mitzvot, spend money doing something good. But then the Chachamim say this. Abba Shaul says, Ze li ve'anveu is like ani vehu. Ze li ve'anveu, if you move the letters a little bit, you could say ani vehu, me and him. Meaning what? Me and God. I want to be like God. How? I want to be like him. I want to act like him. He's generous, I'm generous. He's compassionate, I'm compassionate. He's happy, I'm happy. He's patient, I'm patient. He's dedicated, I'm dedicated. Whatever Hashem is, I want to be like him. How can I be like him? Through the mitzvot. I can be like him through the mitzvot. This is what is the message that Mussar in general is supposed to teach us. That's why Shlomo HaMelech, alav hashalom, said, "Echazek b'musar al teref, nitzrea ki chayecha." Cling tightly to Mussar, to ethical discipline. Don't let it loose. Guard it carefully, for it is your life. It's Proverbs 4:13. And the Gaon Mivina explains that The point of a person, the whole point of a person coming to the world is in order to perfect their character and to get to such a high level of self-control that they fix all of the flaws that are within them naturally. If a person lives in a life without constantly fixing their midot, without using the Torah as an instruction set to fix themselves, he says, then what is your life for then? Why live? There's just no point. There's no point to your life if you're not continuously progressing and becoming a better person. So now we have a very serious question. Every one of us probably thought of this question. You guys are all thinking of this question. I'm sure you are. In the beginning of the shiur, I told you a few things that were kind of disgusting. And I told you that the disgusting behavior was by religious people. Now, for the last hour and a half, I'm telling you, if you become religious, you're going to become not disgusting. You're going to become beautiful. You're going to be beautiful like God. How could it be? How could it be that there are religious people that keep Shabbat, that keep Tarat Mishpacha, that keep kosher, but they're disgusting? But Torah says, no, if you keep the mitzvot of Torah, you're not going to be disgusting. You're going to be beautiful. Opposite. How could it be? No? Who wants to volunteer and answer? It's quite simple. When a person does a mitzvah, it all depends on what motivates him. If the motivation has ceased to exist, meaning that the original motivation was to, let's say, do what Hashem wants, do what Hashem commanded, but after a while, he got used to it. After a while, it became normal for him to not work on Shabbat. It became normal for him to eat only kosher food. It became normal for him to go to shul a couple times a day. It became normal for him. If that's all become normal for him, then guess what? The motivation behind the action no longer exists. Therefore, it's no longer the same mitzvah. It's a mitzvah without kavanah. It's like a goof without a neshama. It's like a body without a soul. Yeah, you're doing the action. You're going to shul. You're eating bread. You're doing stuff, but there's nothing behind it. And if there's nothing behind it, it's not going to beautify you. It's just you doing something. This guy's buying a burger. You're buying a burger. He decides to buy it from McDonald's. You buy it from the kosher place. That's it. That's not the same thing. It's the same thing though. Why? You decide to eat from this restaurant. He decides to eat from that restaurant. It has nothing to do with the mitzvah. Meaning that if there's no kavanah in your tefillah, in your mitzvah, in your anything, in anything that you're doing, if there's no kavanah, there's no real meaning behind it, there's no motivation behind it, it's not going to beautify you. In fact, it's more likely going to make you disgusting. Because while you look like a guy that's supposed to be beautiful, you're going to do a lot of things that are not so beautiful. And that's why one of the most repulsive things in the world in the Torah is that it says in the Torah that one of the most repulsive things is to see a beautiful woman that's immodest. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says is one of the most disgusting things in the world. A beautiful woman, she's beautiful face, beautiful features, beautiful body, but she dresses and acts immodestly. This HaKadosh Baruch Hu finds as one of the most repulsive things in the world. Why? I gave you a soul that's a piece of me, he says. Something that's unimaginable. On top of that, I give you a beautiful body, a beautiful feature to represent the inner beauty. And you go treat it as if it's everybody's property. You go treat it as if it's something that's nothing. That everyone's allowed to look, everyone's allowed to touch, everyone's allowed, everyone. You are using the beauty that I gave you like it's garbage. That's why any woman that wants to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have to do much more than look in the mirror. If you respect yourself as a woman, then you realize that something that's valuable is not public property. You don't make something valuable public property. No one's going to take the most expensive diamond in the world and just leave it in the street, in the park for the kids to play. No one's going to take an expensive painting that's, I don't know, some artist wrote or drew, and it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and just put it in display in some public school. No one's going to take something very, very valuable and just put it in the street and just say, oh yeah, it's here for the taking. Guess what? All of the valuable material in the world is not worth even a minute of the life of a single Bat Israel. But when that Bat Israel acts as if she's public property, she not only allows it, she welcomes the attention and desires of the public by dressing a certain way, by acting a certain way, by looking a certain way, by talking a certain way. Every guy she sees, she's flirty with him. She talks to him. She hugs him. Hey, how are you? How you doing? Hey, ooh, ah, ee. You are making yourself public property. You're not valuing yourself as if you're priceless. This is what our nature without Torah is always going to do. We're always going to mistreat ourselves. We're always going to treat ourselves as if we're like everybody else. And that's the opposite of what we're supposed to be. So Torah Kedosha is supposed to wake a person up to understand that he's not like everybody else. But the Ramban wanted to make sure that each and every word, each and every line, each and every single thing that he writes, you can learn from, you can take into account. To such an extent, as I said before, that the Chachamim say that there was not a single extra letter. And in the letter, in all of his writing, the Kavi Yashar, almost a little over 300 years ago, one of the most well-known Mussar books, written by Rav Kaidenovel, has a very interesting story I told you before, but it's worth telling again because there was a little bit of a minor imperfections in the story the first time we said it. Didn't change the meaning of the story, but nonetheless, always good to be correct. The Kavi Yashar in chapter 81, he writes a story about the Ramban. Same Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman. He writes a story about him. He says that the Ramban wrote that anytime you see a Jew leave Judaism and join Christianity, join idol worship, you can be assured that this Jew came from idolatrous seed. Something already from the beginning is unkosher about him. His father's probably not Jewish, the mom probably cheated, the father probably cheated, there's something wrong already from the time before he came to the world. He's not your normal Jew. He's not your normal Jew. He's not like Abba is a tzaddik, Ima tzadika. Not. Something had to have happened. Maybe the mom was didn't go to the mikveh. Maybe she cheated on the father. Maybe the father cheated. Maybe the father's not even Jewish bichlal. Something had to have happened in order for that neshama of a Jew to go and become Christian. Because why? A normal Jew should be repulsed by Christianity. You should find it as something that naturally, without even knowing a lot about religion, naturally you should be disgusted by Christianity. Naturally. Why? It's idol worship. It's something that doesn't make any sense to any normal human being. Now you're going to say, wait a minute, there's 2 billion people in the world. What, they're all not normal? No, they're not normal. It's not normal. It's not normal to believe in a religion and put everything into it without actually reading the book. And you say, no, they read the book. No way they read the book. Anybody that ever read the book knows it's fake. Or else they're not normal. If you read the book, you know it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It contradicts every line is contradicting the other. So the Ramban writes that if a Jew goes to Christianity, he's already abnormal from the beginning. Now, of course, the Christians were always after the Ramban. And the Christians in those days were actually very, very smart. Not like today's Christians, they're just con men. In those days, they actually read the Sfarim of the Chachamim. And when he published this, the Afifio, the Pope, read the Ramban. Said, if one of the Jews becomes a Christian, Catholic, whatever, that means there's something wrong from the beginning. I mean, that's a bold statement. As you would have it, shortly later, one of the Ramban's children went into the Christian world. So, of course, the Afifio, the Pope, he's as happy as can be. He makes sure the Ramban comes to visit. He commands the Ramban to come. He says, oh, you see, you wrote this, you just published this, that if one of your people becomes a Christian, there's something wrong with them. But look, your own son is contradicting what you're saying. Why? You're a big rabbi, your wife's a big rabbanit, so obviously there's something wrong with what you're saying. At that moment, the Ramban did not have an answer. He went home and he started hysterical crying. He got into a point, he just hysterical crying. Not about his son. Not about his son. About the fact that there may be a mistake in the Torah that he wrote. Why? Why is it such a big deal? Okay, people make mistakes. People make mistakes. You ever go somewhere and you made a wrong right or a wrong left? I don't think there's ever a time I've gone somewhere I didn't make a wrong right or wrong left. If I go straight from one place to the other, there has to be something wrong. The navigations tell me, no, hey, Rabbi, you're going in the right direction, stop it. You're going in the right direction, stop it, make a right, you're going in the right direction, stop it. I have to make a mistake. People make mistakes. So why is the Ramban making such a big deal that maybe he made a mistake? If you make a mistake because you're using your human logic, that's normal, that's perfectly fine. Who really cares? You're just human. But when it comes to Torah, it's not supposed to be your intellect, your logic, your understanding. It's supposed to be an interpretation of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said. Meaning, it's supposed to be what Hashem said. Not what you feel like he said. Oh, this feels good. Yeah, what if it doesn't feel good tomorrow? Like one conservative rabbi a couple of years ago wrote an article. He says, I don't feel like God really meant it when he said that homosexuality is not allowed. I don't really feel like he really meant it. He wrote an article. He publishes this. I don't feel like he really meant it. That's what he said. I don't feel like he really meant it. I don't think there's no way that God meant to say such a horrible thing. I don't feel like it. Or some other guy calls himself Orthodox rabbi. I don't think it's right. I don't feel like it's right for Orthodox rabbis not to be the rabbis that make weddings with men and men. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to make weddings with men and men as an Orthodox rabbi. He feels like it's the right thing. When it's your feelings, when it's your logic, when it's your own brain, who cares if you make a mistake? But when it's God, that's a big problem. When you made a mistake thinking that your understanding is God's understanding, and therefore there was a mistake, now you have a problem. Why? The Ramban says, if I made a mistake thinking that what I thought is what God is thinking, and in reality it's not, who's to say that the rest of my Torah is not wrong also? One time, one of the people that would constantly ask questions of Arav Moshe Feinstein, alav Shalom, every day he would have countless people waiting for him after he prayed. As he would leave the Bet Knesset, the Bet Midrash, to go home, hundreds and hundreds of people would follow him with endless amount of questions. All parts of halacha, all parts of books, everything off the top of his head. Mamash, like unbelievable, just like Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation. Any question you had, he'd tell you what the answer is, which book to find it, what page, what line, who, what, when, and how, who contradicted it, who agreed. I mean, unbelievable knowledge. Something that's, if I didn't start learning a little bit in the secular world, it's impossible to understand. It's impossible to understand that a human being could actually possess such knowledge and still be considered human. One time, a guy says to him, Rabbi, you're wrong. Wrong halacha, wrong. No, says the halacha. He goes, you're going against a shach mefurash. Almost 400 years ago. One of the Gedolei Ador was the shach. And the shach wrote lots of work, lots of halachot, lots of things. And his name was Rabbi Shabtai HaKohen. And this Jew was telling Rav Moshe Feinstein, your conclusion is against the shach from 400 years ago, the Gedolei Ador. You forgot what you're doing. At that moment, Rav Moshe Feinstein, they say, he stopped, immediately changed direction, hurried up to go, get the book, get the shach, open. No, I didn't make a mistake. It's right here. It's right here. And then he says, the day that I forget one seif, one little commentary, one line that the shach said 400 years ago, the day that I forget one of them is the day I stop being a posek. If I forget one, not the whole thing, not all pages and books. No, one thing I forget that the shach said 400 years ago. If I forget it one time, I'm not going to be posek anymore. Why? Because that means that if I forgot one, who's to say I'm not going to forget something else? Who's to say that my mind is connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu the way it's supposed to be? When the Ramban was upset, was crying hysterical, saying, I can't believe it, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I made a mistake writing this, that if a Jew leaves Judaism, goes to Christianity, that means there's something wrong originally from when it started, and now I have a contradiction. If there's a contradiction in this, maybe everything that I know is contradiction. But of course, anyone that remembers the story and remembers the part where his dear wife, the Rabbanit, tells him, Rabbi, stop crying and let me tell you a story. She says, years ago, I went to the mikveh as the time came for me to become pure. And I went to the mikveh and it was at night. And one of the noblemen of the city saw me and liked what he saw. So he forced one of his soldiers to get me and force me to come to his house and rape me. And that night, from his seed, I conceived the son. Now, if you don't believe me, she takes out a bag and shows him, this is his thumb that I bit off while he was raping me. The Ramban was so happy. Now, yes, he just found out that his son is not really his son. Yes, he just found out that his dear wife that he loves got raped many years ago. But none of that mattered. Why? It was against her will. She didn't do it on purpose. She fought. She has evidence. The kid left. But, more importantly than everything else, the Torah is right. He runs to the Pope, and he brings the thumb, and he says, look, Torah is right. This guy, he raped my wife. He tells him the whole story. Oh, that's a big accusation. It's a big accusation. He tells the soldiers, go bring the nobleman here. Go bring him here. They bring him. The Pope sees that he's wearing a glove. Says, take off your glove. He doesn't want to. The Kaveh Yashar says they forced him to take off his glove. After they take off the glove, they see, oh, he's got only 4 fingers. He's missing a finger. Says, what happened to your finger? He says, years ago, I raped a Jewish woman, a married Jewish woman, and she bit off my thumb. The Ramban at that moment says something that all of us wish that we could have one day in our life where we can say it because we're responsible for it. He says, so you see that our Torah is true and that the words of our sages and our God are true. Meaning, you see what we have in our Torah. You see all that stuff that doesn't make any sense? It's all true. Why? Because Torah says it and it comes from God. The sages say it and all they're telling you is what God already said. God said it and there's no other God. There's no 3 like you think. Biggest Kiddush Hashem there was 800 years ago. Came from something disgusting. Came from something awful. But nonetheless, if a person thinks cleanly, thinks correctly, thinks the right way at all times, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give him opportunities to sanctify his name and make the biggest mitzvah there is. So, up to here, Rabotai, is the introduction to the letter. Next week, Be'ezrat Hashem, maybe tomorrow, I'm not sure, maybe we'll continue the series tomorrow, we'll do the other thing tomorrow, right? Where, the questions, right? You guys asked me questions. Yeah, you guys actually started asking questions. So, next week, Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to continue the letter. I'm going to try to, Be'ezrat Hashem, have a copy of it and of the book for each one of you. If you want to buy it on your own, you can buy it on your own. To try to understand each and every sentence of what the Rambam is trying to teach us, how we could use each one of these lines and apply it in our own life in order to purify our actions, to purify our minds, to purify every single move and step that we have. That way, we don't have to waste our time being like one of these, what are they called? These little things that look like mice. Hamsters in a circle, but the same thing keeps happening over and over again. You start a new project and it fails. You start a new relationship and it fails. You start a new endeavor and it fails. You start and it fail. You constantly go back and you hit the wall. Everything you start hits the wall. Everything you start gets you to become depressed. Everything you do doesn't make you happy. Why? You don't have bracha. You don't have pure actions. You don't have pure mind. It's very important to purify yourself. Especially now, we have only a few weeks left before Matan Torah. This is the time. This is the time when we have to do everything possible to purify ourselves. But purify ourselves doesn't mean you're going to go to the mikveh 500 times a day. Purify ourselves means we have to purify our mind and start grabbing onto something and start doing it. You have to use the mitzvot in order to purify you. So if you're already doing something, if you go to shul every day, if you learn every day, if you're whatever it is that you do every day that's connected to Hashem, and you stop getting that feeling from it, that exciting feeling from it, okay, that should be the task today. Okay, I have to start fixing this. If you're seeing that really you're used to, you're bored of life, you're bored of Judaism, you're bored of Torah, it's time to change it. That means you don't have kavanah. That means there's something wrong. If you see that you're constantly hitting the wall, everything you do is failing, that means that your intentions are not pure. And Hashem is trying to help you by making everything fail. Because if you would succeed, it would get worse. Point is, Rabotai, is that this series, B'ezrat Hashem, is going to help us purify specific things. I'm going to talk a lot about humility, anger, different types of midot. Try to use different writings of the Rambam, and there are other sages, to try to get a little bit of a better idea of what it means to be pure and how we could attain as much of it in our lifetime as possible. Any questions? Yes?
I have a question. Example, a Jewish man in his 50s, marries a Goya. They're done with their childbearing years. What's the significance or the consequence? Is it exactly the same? Even though there's no, let's say in menopause is already happened. There's no nidah, there's no kids. What's the story? Well,
a man doesn't stop having the ability to have kids. He still has seed. So every time he ejects seed, he's wasting seed, which the Shulchan Aruch calls the biggest sin in the Torah. That's sin number 1. Sin number 2 is Isur Goya. He's not allowed to even touch the Goya, even on our hand. Forget about being intimate, needless to say. We're talking about he's not even allowed to touch our hand.
Even if they're 70 years old?
Even if they're 7,000 years old. The 7,000 years old, they know what happened in the Mabul. They know what happened in the Mabul, still not allowed to touch each other. Why? He's a Jew, she's not. Even Avraham Avinu had the law that he's not allowed to marry the Canaanites. I'm going to give you a chidush for your wonderful question. The Zohar Kadosh says, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu send Am Yisrael to Mitzrayim? Why? Now you're going to tell me, he told Avraham Avinu. He told Avraham Avinu, your descendants are going to go to a foreign land, they're going to be slaves over there, but I'll take them out eventually. Why? Why do we have to go through that? Just tell us, listen, I'm God, here's your Torah, be human beings. Here's the Ramban, he'll teach you Mussar. What's the problem? Why do we have to go through all of that? For what? The Zohar Kadosh says, the marriage between the descendants of Yaakov, the descendants of Yitzchak, the descendants of Avraham, for them to marry anyone but Bnei Israel was viewed as so hideous in the eyes of Hashem that he says, I have to send the actual sages themselves, the actual tzaddikim themselves, I have to actually send Yaakov Avinu and the 12 tribes. I have to send them to Egypt. Make them feel comfortable. Make them feel at home. Why? So they can settle there and be there and all become slaves. Why? Because once they become slaves, they're going to go to Egypt. The Egyptians are going to become disgusted by them. And if the Egyptians are disgusted by them, they're not going to want to marry them. If they don't want to marry them, then, Baruch Hashem, Bnei Israel will stay Bnei Israel. But if the Egyptians, the Canaanites, the Midianites, the Babylonians, whoever it is, if everybody else sees, these Bnei Israel, these Jews, they're nice people. Maybe we can marry them. Maybe we can hang out with them. Maybe we can do this. Guess what? There wouldn't be Bnei Israel today. There wouldn't be Am Yisrael today. Why? It would have been lost already in Egypt. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to put Yaakov Avinu and his sons and his grandsons, mamash, at life risk, an actual real life risk for their descendants. Millions of them were murdered in cold blood. For what? To preserve the seed of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So if a person intermarries today, no matter how old he is, or how young he is, 4,000 years later, that simply means he doesn't realize how important this is in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu is willing to send his own sons to the Holocaust, to Auschwitz, he's willing to send his own sons to Auschwitz, to gas chambers. For what? To save them. To save them. What makes you think that it's okay in his eyes that one Jew is marrying a non-Jew? Boy, girl, doesn't make a difference. Never. So that's the thing. Why do we do it? Because we don't know. We don't know that it's important in the eyes of Hashem. We don't know what the Torah says. And many times we act as if we don't care. Sometimes we don't care because we're so ignorant we don't realize we're supposed to care. Sometimes we don't care because we're so busy working for the Malach HaMavet, for the Satan himself, that we forget that we're supposed to care. We're supposed to work for Hashem instead of Malach HaMavet. Needless to say, there are many, many sins that have to do with a Jew and a Gentile when they're intimate. And there's Kabbalah about it, there's Gemara about it. The Gemara says that a Jew that's intimate with a non-Jew has to reincarnate as a dog. So if anybody wants to become a poodle, go enjoy yourself. We'll sell you for $150 in a puppy store.
Rabbi, isn't it worse for a Jewish man to intermarry than a Jewish woman? Because at least the Jewish woman will still have Jewish kids.
No, not necessarily. They both go to Gehenom. They both have to get punished. They both have to live with sin. They both have a very, very serious tshuva to do. They can both fix it, but they're both in very, very serious problems, because if a Jewish woman marries a non-Jew, in most cases, not all cases, because I already know myself several cases where things, Baruch Hashem, have changed drastically. I have a couple of students where a Jewish woman married a non-Jew, and eventually the Jew ended up converting, and their kids ended up becoming tzaddikim, and things worked out. But this is a very rare circumstance. In most cases, when a Jewish woman marries a non-Jewish man, the kids become very confused, most likely atheist, or completely away from religion altogether. And in essence, now she has to go to not only Gehenom for her own sins, but the sins of our children, because it's her fault. So it's a horrible idea.
Follow. What is the punishment for the Gentile in that relationship?
Eternal damnation. He's considered a murderer. When a non-Jew is intimate with a Jew, according to the Noahide laws, which is the Torah, he's considered as if he committed murder, because he murdered a Jewish soul by doing that. And a murderer, if he's a Noahide, has to get eternal Gehenom. Meaning he has a Gehenom and it doesn't end. So, next. More good news? Beset? Yeah. Ken. Of course, it has to be in your own efforts. If it's at somebody else's expense, meaning what? They're taking advantage of somebody else? That's stealing. No, you're not allowed to rob Peter to pay Paul. Not allowed to go rob some banks so you can give tzedakah. No, that we're not allowed to. And mitzvah ba'avera. There's no mitzvah that comes in the way of sin. You have to obviously beautify a mitzvah, but at the same token, the Chachamim explain, it's in the Yakut Yosef, actually, in the section about the Omer and Shavuot, where it talks about how a person needs to make sure that even though they may have certain minagim, for example, the night of Shavuot. The night of Shavuot, it's a skula to stay up all night and learn Torah for men. Women are not supposed to do it, but it's okay for women to do it on Hoshana Rabbah. The reason why is because the mitzvah of Hoshana Rabbah is to bring the Mashiach, and we're all responsible to bring the Mashiach, so everybody's supposed to stay up during Hoshana Rabbah. But the mitzvah of learning Torah, that's Shavuot, and not only men are obligated to do it. So they're only there supposed to stay up all night. Now the minhag is to read a certain seder that goes over the entire Torah, goes over the entire Tanakh, a little bit of each parasha. There's a minhag to do it. But halachically speaking, you are allowed to study whatever you want in the Torah. Meaning, if you want to learn Gemara the whole night, no problem. But the minhag is to learn the specific seder that the Chachamim put together. Now, if the place that you're at, if you're at a shul where they're doing the minhag, the custom, you're not allowed to study Gemara. You have to do what they're doing. If they're all doing what is the custom, you have to do what they're doing. You can't go to the side and go study Gemara. You have to do what they're doing. You want to do something else, go home. But it's a lot more difficult to stay up by yourself all night. Why? Why is that the case? Because you're not supposed to be different. You're not supposed to try, do things to be different. At the same token, you're supposed to be different, but in different aspects. Meaning, you're not supposed to be different means that if they're righteous, you're righteous. But if they're wicked, you're not supposed to be wicked also. You have to use your brain also. So, as far as beautifying a mitzvah is so long as it's not hurting somebody else. You have to beautify a mitzvah. For example, if somebody wanted to learn, it's perfectly good to learn Torah. Learning Torah, keneged kulam, it's like as if you're fulfilling the entire Torah. But if you decide to come to this shiur, and you go learn your book in the middle of this shiur, that's not a mitzvah, it's an avirah, it's a sin. Why? Because you're disturbing everybody else. If you came to this shiur, and you're, you come, you sit, you stand up, you came, you sit, you stand up, you go outside, you go inside, you could drink coffee, you put a phone call, you're better off not coming to the shiur. Why? You're disturbing everybody. You're disturbing everybody. You can tell your friends that you went to the shiur, but in reality, you're disturbing everybody. So, the point is that your mitzvah cannot hurt other people. Cannot hurt other people. You have to be very careful that it doesn't hurt other people. So, if you're learning, make sure that you're learning at a place where you can learn. If, let's say, there's a lot of other people learning, then you learn. If it's a specific prayer, then, and let's say, for example, they pick you to be chazan. And the kehillah is used to praying, let's say, Amidah, normal, I don't know, let's say 8, 10 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever it is. Let's say to do Amidah. But you want to do Midat Chasidut, you want to do Amidah in a half hour. You're not allowed to be chazan over there. Why? You cannot force everybody to do a half hour Amidah. That's Torah Chsibu. Now, even though it's great that you're doing it, do it somewhere else. So, yes, it's beautiful that you want to be a Chassid. It's beautiful that you want to do certain things, but you can't push that on somebody else. So, everybody has to, that's the point of always double checking our own actions and seeing what is our motivation. If our motivation is to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, meaning by pure actions, then all of these thoughts are going to come to you naturally, because your motivation is going to be to make Hashem happy, to make Hashem proud of you. Well, obviously, He'll be proud of you if you do good, but not if you murder a few of His kids on the way there. You understand? Yeah, you could go drive to a, help people with an ambulance to save their life. But if you kill people on the way to save this one guy in the back, that's not thank you, but no thank you. You understand? So, beautifying the mitzvah is definitely an obligation that we have to do. But needless to say, it's also something that a person needs to take into consideration. How is it affecting other people? Anything else? So tomorrow night we have a shiur. We're actually back here tomorrow night. Tomorrow night's going to be questions and answers. Anybody that gets had some good questions, ask them tomorrow. B'ezrat Hashem. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen ve'amen.